Hey, sixth grade, how's it going? Today's Wednesday, September 1st, 2020. Today we're going to be continuing to analyze pie graphs with percentages, fractions, and other quantities. Let's start with page 108. On page 108, number 4 says, a group of children was asked to choose their favorite drinks. The pie graph represents their choices. Let's take a look at the first one. Letter A says, which was the most popular drink? Well, if we look at the pie graph, we know that the largest quantity is represented by the quantity of orange, right? We have orange juice as the largest quantity. That's pretty simple. So orange juice was the largest quantity or the most popular, right? Letter B says, what fraction of the children liked orange juice? Well, that's a good question. If we split this graph into two, in other words, into half, we know that this part is 50%, and this part is also 50%, because 50 plus 50 equals 100%. Now, we also know that this part right here of the 50 is 1/10. Now, I know that 1/10 plus some fraction is going to give me 5/10. And I also know that 5/10 is the same thing as 50%. We learned that in previous lessons. So 5 minus 1 equals 4, so our fraction is 4/10. All right, so the answer for letter B is 4/10, which we can simplify into another equivalent fraction just by dividing by 2. Divide 4 by 2, we get 2, and divide 10 by 2, we get 5. So 2/5 is your final answer. Let's look at number 4C on page 108. All right, let's go to letter C. Letter C says, what percentage of children liked apple juice? Well, apple juice on the graph is shown with a fraction of 3/10. So in order to figure out the percentage of that, we would have to just multiply by 100. If we take 3/10 and we equate that to a fraction, we multiplied 10 by 10 to get 100. So we need to just multiply 3 times 10 to get 30. And I know that 30/100ths equals 30%. All right, so 30% of children like apple juice. What about letter D? Letter D says, what percentage of the children liked milk? Well, this one we don't know the fraction, but we can try to figure it out by taking 5/10, which is just the half, like we talked about before, minus the apple juice, which is 3/10. Luckily, they're both the same denominator, so 5 minus 3 equals 2/10, which I can simplify to 1/5 if I really wanted to, or I could just change this to a percentage right away. I can multiply 10 times 10 and 2 times 10. 10 times 10 equals 100, and 2 times 10 equals 20. And 20 over 100 equals 20%. So we've already found the percentage of apple juice, which is 30%, and the amount of milk, which is 20%. And like I said before, 20 plus 30 equals 50%. Let's try to figure out letter E, which is hidden underneath this box right there. It says, if 48 children liked apple juice, how many children were there in the whole group? Let's switch the colors just to see this a little bit better. All right, so we have 48 students that like apple juice. And I don't know how many students there are total. But I do know the fraction, which is 3/10. So we're going to equate this to 3/10. Now, how do I figure out the answer for how many students there were in all? Well, there's multiple ways I could figure this out. Let's just do one of the ways, which is multiplying 48 times 10, which is cross-multiplying, and then we're going to divide by 3. I can do that on the screen, but since there's not a lot of space, I'm going to use the calculator. Here we have 48 times 10, which equals 480. Divide that by 3, and we get 160. So the amount of students in the whole group is 160. And we're going to label that as children. Okay. Check your answers to make sure that they're okay. You have all the answers on the screen. And we're going to go on and head to page 109 inside of your Prime workbook. All right, let's go to page 109. There are the answers one more time. And there's also another way to actually describe letter E. If I know that 30% equals 48, each percentage, each 1% can be equated to 8 over 5, which then we can equate to 160, okay? Because it's actually more than 100%. It's 165%, so I'm sorry, 160%, which is 160 students, okay? Let's go on to letter number 1 on page 109. The directions say, the pie chart shows how Ms. Williams spent $1,000 on 4 electrical items. You can see the items are her oven, her iron, her fan, and her television. What we need to do is try to find the percentage of money spent on each item and write it in the pie chart below. Okay, now I've not put the answers in there on purpose just so we can figure this out. Now there's a hard way to do it and an easy way to do it. Let me show you the hard way first. What you could do is equate $400 to the total, which is $1,000. Okay, both of these are dollars. And then we could compare that to the amount of percent, right? 100. We could cross multiply 400 times 100 and then divide by 1,000 to try to figure out our percentage. That's the hard way. That's with a calculation. Okay, we could do that again with 150. Put 150 over 1,000, 100, 350 to try to find the percentage of each one of those items. Or we could do it a whole lot simpler way. Like in mathematics, I've always told you that there's many ways to solve a problem. Let's show you an easier way. Each one of these numbers ends in a 0, which means that it's a multiple of 10. So what we can do is we can just divide each one of them by 10. So let's start with 400. If we divide 400 by 10, it's the same thing as just taking away this 0, which equals 40. You can do the same thing with 150, the same thing with 100, and the same thing with 350. So each one of these is just left over with the percentage. Since I divided by 10, 400 divided by 10 is the same thing as getting the percentage. So this is 40%. This is 15%. Iron is 10%. And oven is 35%. Look at that. That was much easier. And if I needed to check my answers just to make sure that they were correct, I could just add them up. 40 plus 35 plus 15 plus 10, and I'd get 100%, just to check my answers. All right, that was pretty simple. Really easy. Check your answers to make sure that they're okay. I'll put the answers on the screen. And let's go on to page 110. 110 is a little bit more complicated, but still pretty much the same. It says, a group of 80 people were asked which countries they'd visit during a holiday season. The pie chart represents the various countries they visited. So, letter A says, what percentage of the people visited Japan? Well, Japan has 15%. So all we really need to do is write that answer in blank. 15% of people visited Japan. Letter B. What percentage of the people visited India? Well, India is an interesting part because it actually has a right angle. And we know that right angles can be equated to amount of degrees. How many degrees are in a right angle? You're right, 90 degrees. And a 90-degree angle is also equal to 25% of the whole graph. That's just an accepted mathematical calculation. You can also say that that's equal to 1/4 or is also equal to 0.25 or 25 hundredths, okay? Each one of these numbers is exactly the same. They're all equivalent. 90 degrees, 25%, 1/4, and 0.25 are all the same, okay? They're all represented right here. So let's try to figure out letter B. It says, what percentage of the people visited India? Well, there it is. There's your percent, 25%. Check your answers to make sure that they're okay. And let's go on to letter C. Letter C says, what percentage of the people visited Thailand? Thailand is represented here in the graph, right there. Now, we don't know the fraction and we don't know the percent, but we do know the percentage of India, which is 25%. So if we know India and we know China and we know Japan, we can figure out the percentage of Thailand. We can just take our full 100% minus 25 minus 20 minus 15 to get our missing percent, which is Thailand. So you could do that in your head, or you can do it on the calculator, or you can write it with the calculation. 100 minus 25 minus 20 minus 15 equals 40%. If you wanted to check that, you could check it by adding up all of these numbers one more time and making sure that they all add up to 100. And so our percentage is 40%. What about letter B? It says, how many people visited Japan? Let me just erase some of the things on the screen. Get rid of that. Okay, so this was 40%. Well, we know that Japan has 15% of the people as visitors, so we need to take 15% of the whole total, right? And we know that our total is 80 people. So what is 15% of 80? Well, that's the same thing as 15 over 100 times 80 over 1. Okay? We can cross multiply and then divide like normal. I'm going to, let's see, 80 times 100 is actually 8,000. And then 8,000 divided by 15, I could do on the screen, but there's not a lot of space, so I'll do it on the calculator. We have, let's do this one more time, 100 times 80 divided by 15 equals 533. That doesn't seem right. Something's wrong there. Let's try this one more time. 15% of 80. I did something wrong here. Let's try this again. Actually, all right, so if we know that 15% of the people visited Japan, and we wanted to figure out the percentage, we would take 15%, okay, which I can actually, let's just make this a smaller fraction so we can work with the smaller numbers. Divide both sides by 5, we have 3/20. And I can equate that to the amount of people. Okay, I put the 80 on the top. It actually goes on the bottom. There we go. Whenever you find an answer that doesn't make sense, like this one, 533 people doesn't make sense because our total's 80, you have to try that calculation one more time, okay? 20 to get to 80, we multiplied by 4. So 3 times 4 equals 12, okay? So it should be 12 people visiting Japan. Okay, so our answer is 12 people. Okay, and I think our answer for Thailand was 40%. Is that correct? All right, let's try to figure out letter E. It says, how many people visited China. Well, we know that 20% of them visited China. So we need to take 20%, which is the same thing as 20 over 100, which is the same thing as 2 over 10, or 1/5, and equate that to the amount of total people, which is 80. Okay? We're not finding a percent. So last time I actually, I think I multiplied by 100. We're not going to do that. All right? 5 times what number equals 80? Well, let's divide 80 divided by 5, 16. So I'm going to actually multiply 1 times 16 and get 16. So it should be 16 people visited China. Okay? Boys and girls, check your answers to make sure that they're correct. That you have all those answers that are on the screen. 40%, 12 people, and 16 people. Let me show you the answers again on the screen. All right, so we have 40%, 12 people, and 16 people. All right, next time, boys and girls, we're going to be going to page 111, but we don't have time for now. So thank you for being attentive, and we'll see you next time.